Welcome back to the second edition of the Jacob and Jacob podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Hare. I'm joined by my co-host, Jacob Roblom. Today we'll be discussing a very successful NFL draft, which is done virtually by all 32 teams. And Jacob, I got to say, some teams had some good drafts, some teams had some bad drafts, a few teams had questionable drafts. Who do you think had a really good draft and they stood out from the pack?
I think the Cowboys had a really good draft. I wouldn't say they stood out from the pack. I would say more they were up there with a few other teams. I would even include the Bengals in that. But I think, the Cowboys, the selection of CeeDee Lamb really helps that offense because last year they were good. The offense did well, but, they were maybe missing like another key piece, another weapon. And they may have found that in CeeDee Lamb. He probably passes Michael Gallup as that number 2 receiver in Dallas, in my opinion. I think he has the ability to be a star receiver. CeeDee Lamb. And I really like the pick, and I like what they did with Trayvon Diggs in the second round. I think the Cowboys, they did a good job. They made smart selections. Trayvon Diggs, they need secondary. He's a good player. A lot of people had him in the first round in some mock drafts. He sort of fell out of the first round as it got closer to the draft, but I think Trayvon Diggs, a good player out of Alabama. I like the pick there by Dallas.
I got to go with the Carolina Panthers. They just rebuilt that defense unbelievably. Look, Matt Rule, he was at Temple. Temple was an awful program for a few years. Matt Rule came in. He realized he had to get some recruits to rebuild it, so he rebuilt it there. He went to Baylor. He did the same exact thing. He goes to Carolina. He does the same exact thing. He got Derek Brown. He's a beast. Jeremy Chin in the second round. Yoder Gross-Matas in the second round out of Penn State. He just rebuilt that defense to complete. He even got a sleeper in the fourth round, Troy Pride out of Notre Dame. And in my opinion, I think the Panthers are going to have – they're in a tough division. But Matt Rule realized, I got to get a good defense to match with these high-power NFC South offenses. And he did a great job with that, in my opinion.
I completely agree with you on that. That offense in Carolina has the ability to be really good with Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore and the addition of Robbie Anderson and especially now Teddy Bridgewater taking over as quarterback. And, there's some high-power offenses with Tampa Bay, New Orleans, and the Falcons even in the NFC South, and they had to bolster that defense, and the Panthers did exactly that. I really like the selections they made, especially Derek Brown in the first round. He's going to be a great player. I completely agree with you on the Panthers.
And there were some good value picks in this draft, and there were some questionable picks in this draft. What do you think was the best value pick in this draft? Not the best pick, but the best value pick.
The best value pick, I like the Eagles and how they selected Davion Taylor. He's a good pick. I also like the Cowboys selecting Trayvon Diggs. I really like that pick. But in my opinion, the best value pick was Xavier McKinney in the second round to the New York Giants. I think that was an elite selection. I think he's going to be a star player in this league. I would compare him to a Minka Fitzpatrick type player. But, I think that was a great selection for the New York Giants. Xavier McKinney, safety out of Alabama. I think he's going to be a really good player. And I think getting him in the second round where they got him was great pick for the Giants.
I got to go with Patrick Queen at 28 to the Ravens. Look, this guy, in my opinion, is an early first rounder, maybe top like 20 and stuff. They got him at 28. This guy's a difference maker. At LSU, you saw when they won the national championship, this guy was all over the field. He makes tackles. He's a run stopper. He does everything you want out of your linebacker, and I think that's the best value pick in this draft. I also like the pick by Cincinnati picking Logan Wilson at the top of the third round. I think this kid out of Wyoming is a fantastic linebacker, and I think that Cincinnati may have won the draft off that pick.
Yeah.
And my next question for you is, there were some picks which were just completely you question them. You didn't know what the team was doing. You didn't know what the general manager was thinking. What pick did you question the most?
One pick that I think I'm not even alone questioning for sure is the Jalen Hurts pick by the Philadelphia Eagles at pick number 53 in the second round. Personally, I like Jalen Hurts as a player coming to the Eagles. I think he adds a new dynamic to the offense. I really like that the Eagles brought him in, but I think they wasted a pick on him there because I think they could have gotten a player that assessed a more vital need. They could have taken a linebacker. They could have taken another receiver. And I think that Jalen Hurts is a good player. He helps the Eagles a lot, but he's not what the Eagles needed. He's sort of like an add-on. They didn't need him, but they wanted him, and they decided to take him. But I feel like they could have assessed another need. I think that's a very questionable pick, but I don't completely hate it. I like it.
I have to totally disagree with you there. Look, there were 3 players on the board that I wanted. Denzel Mims, Jeremy Chin, and J.K. Dobbins. Look, was Hurts a winner in college? Yeah, he was a winner in college. Was Hurts great at Oklahoma and Alabama? Yeah, he was great at both. Do the Eagles need a backup quarterback? Absolutely not. Carson Wentz is the franchise quarterback, and all signs point to this pick as this guy's going to come in 4 years and replace Wentz, which is totally blasphemy. It's ridiculous. Look, has Wentz been hurt in the past? Yeah. But could you have gotten another backup in a free agency or maybe lower in the draft?
But what the Saints have done with Taysom Hill. Look
Hey,
how much that the
what round
dynamic
did Taysom Hill
offense.
go in? What round did Taysom Hill go in?
He was undrafted, but
Yeah,
Jalen Hurts was much better coming out of college than Taysom Hill.
but Jalen Hurts isn't like a Taysom Hill, in my opinion.
Maybe they can use him in a similar way to Taysom Hill, and I think that the Eagles will. And I think
That's
it's going to help them
a big
a lot
difference.
offensively.
That's a big difference. He's not a Taysom Hill. They can use him like a Taysom Hill. You're not drafting him in the second round to do trick plays and run wildcat formations and stuff. You're drafting the second round to win a Super Bowl. These trick plays, what are you going to run, 3 or 4 a game? And how successful are they going to be? Maybe score a touchdown every 1 out of 10 trick plays you run? Come on. Is Jalen Hurts the future? No. Is Jalen Hurts going to replace Wentz ever? I sure hope not. And my next question for you is, what do you think of the Dolphins taking Tua over Herbert?
I love the pick by the Miami Dolphins. I wanted them all along. Tua Tagovailoa. I think he is the second best quarterback in this draft behind Joe Burrow, and I think that the Dolphins, by taking Herbert, it would have been a mistake. I think taking Tua was the smart choice at that pick. I love the pick by the Dolphins, and couldn't agree more with Miami.
I got to disagree with you there. Look, Tua's a great quarterback, great when healthy, but his durability has been a huge concern in his whole college career. He's had multiple surgeries. He hasn't completed a season in a while. He got hurt last season and he had hip surgery. But look, if Tua is a good quarterback in the NFL and he stays healthy, the pick is better. But it's a big what if. Justin Herbert was healthy all of college. He was a great quarterback. He was a good leader. And I think that the Dolphins would have been perfect for Justin Herbert, and Justin Herbert would have been perfect for the Dolphins. I think that, look, the Dolphins, they're not going to win now, but Justin Herbert could have taken a year to develop. Maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick would have played the season. And you know that Herbert has a better durability than Tua after all these injuries Tua had in college. I just don't see what the Dolphins are doing there.
But you say that thing about durability and how Tua's been injured, but when you look at who is the sheer better quarterback, who's the better quarterback, it has to be Tua. Look what Tua did in college with Alabama. Look what he did. He was amazing for them. He was a great player. He certainly would have been in the Heisman conversation had he not gotten hurt. He wouldn't have won it. Joe Burrow had it locked up, but I think Tua Tagovailoa, his arm, his accuracy it's incredible. And I think that the Dolphins they made the right pick. They made the smart selection. Herbert, he didn't have the best season at Oregon. He wasn't as good as everyone thought he was going to be. He came back for another year, and people thought, okay, maybe this is the year where he takes it to the top, takes it to the next level. But he didn't. And Tua Tagovailoa, even before he got hurt, he was playing well. He was playing good football. He was extremely successful with Alabama, and I think that the Dolphins, they made the smart selection, and they made the right selection.
Look, I'm not disagreeing with you that Tua is a better quarterback, but the big thing is when he's healthy, and he's not a healthy guy right now. He's just not, and I think that Herbert is a better quarterback to build around because you know that you don't have health concerns with him. Tua is a huge risk. Every hit he takes, you're going to be worried. It's just like when it's so difficult building around a quarterback who you don't know if he's going to be healthy.
Hey, I mean, I understand your case, but I just think that Tua is a better quarterback, and at that pick, they needed to take the better quarterback, and they did.
All right, my next question for you is, there were a lot of good quarterbacks in this draft, as we just talked about. There was one.
All the products Schaefer sells online 24/7 from.
Sorry for the technical difficulties. We were just trying to get up some highlights, but we'll save that for later when we have our first ever guest on. My next question for you is, there were a lot of good quarterbacks in this draft, as we just talked about. Tua, Herbert, Burrow. But there was one guy in particular. No one really knew where he was going to go. He could have been a top 10 guy. He could have been maybe not even first round. But the Packers took Jordan Love. And give me your thoughts on that.
Personally, I like Jordan Love as a player, but I think the Packers, not a good pick at 26. I thought he was going to go earlier to New England, but I feel like by selecting Jordan Love, it's almost as if you're forcing a guy like Aaron Rodgers out of Green Bay, a guy who probably feels like he can still be a top quarterback in his league, who probably feels like he's still playing at an elite level, which I think he has. He hasn't been as good as he was, but he's certainly still playing at a very good level. And I think that he probably feels like he still has 3, 4 more, even more years left in the league. And I feel like by selecting Jordan Love, you put Rodgers in a bad place because he's like, it gets him thinking like, oh, they have my replacement. Like, what, they think I'm going to be done like after this year, after the next year? And he probably isn't. He doesn't like this pick. I think that a lot of people are saying now, Aaron Rodgers, he might want to move out of Green Bay after seeing this. And I think he might. But for now, he's the quarterback. I just don't think that Jordan Love needed to be selected as his replacement at this time in Rodgers' career.
Well, let's put it into perspective. You're looking at it, the pick, like the glass is half empty. I'm looking at it at the glass is half full. Look, Aaron Rodgers, great quarterback, first ballot Hall of Famer and stuff. But his teams have been good the past few years, but he hasn't put up MVP numbers. I think this pick is to put a little more pressure on Aaron Rodgers while they get a quarterback, and then I guess who will take over in 3 to 4 years. And this like makes Rodgers realize that like he has to be better because there's a guy in there who could beat him out any day of the week. Just because of Jordan Love's arm strength and stuff. I'm not saying he's going to come in day one. He's going to beat Rodgers for the job. But 2 or 3 years, Jordan Love has a great camp. Aaron Rodgers looks a little older. His age is starting to show. Maybe the Packers pull the trigger on Jordan Love and name him the franchise quarterback.
I mean, you could be right, but for now, Aaron Rodgers needs to know that he is the starter in Green Bay and that he's going to be there for the next however many years. And then I think that by taking Jordan Love, it puts some sort of instability in Aaron Rodgers' mind about him continuing to be the quarterback of the Packers.
I agree. I have to agree with that point. But my next question for you is, what do you think of Henry Ruggs being taken over Justin Jefferson, Jerry Jeudy, and CeeDee Lamb?
Personally, I think that in today's NFL, you look at all these speedy, quick wide receivers, and Henry Ruggs is just that. You saw his speed. He ran a 4.27 at the combine. And I think I like the pick. Those 3 guys, you could make a case for all of them being the best receiver in this draft class. And I don't disagree with Oakland taking him. Could they have gone with another one of them? Could they have taken Jeudy? Could they have taken CeeDee Lamb? Yes, but I think that John Gruden probably felt that was right for them, that they wanted a speedy, quick receiver that they could bring in and be a good pass catcher for them. And I think it's a good pick. It's certainly not a bad pick. I think he's going to be a good receiver. And, hey, if CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy do end up being better, then we'll look back at this in however many years and be like, okay, maybe they messed up. But for now, I don't think that they messed up. I think they chose what they felt was right for them. So I think it's a good pick.
I agree with you. Look at the Chiefs. Speed won championships for them, or Speed won a championship for them. Look, I'm not calling Carr on Mahomes or anything, but Henry Ruggs is a fast player. He's dynamic on the field. He's a playmaker. John Gruden loves playmakers, as you saw in the booth. Monday Night Football, you always pointed out playmakers. I actually really like this pick for Oakland. Look, Judy's a great receiver. Lamb is a great receiver. Are they better receivers than Ruggs? Maybe. Only time will tell. But right now, I really like this pick for Las Vegas now.
Yes.
And what do you think of the Chiefs picking Clyde Edwards at 32 over Swift, Dobbins, John Taylor?
I think it's a good pick. You heard that's who Mahomes wanted, and I think you have to please the star quarterback. But yeah, I think Clyde Edwards, he's going to be a good running back. I like the pick for the Chiefs. It doesn't appear like it's going to work out with Damian Williams. He's been fine for the Chiefs, but he hasn't been what they want. After losing Kareem Hunt, people thought, okay, well, Damian Williams, here he is. Maybe he'll become a top running back in the league. Maybe he'll I like the pick for Kansas City of Clyde Edwards at the end of the first round. I think last year you saw Damian Williams. They thought he would maybe fill that number 1 running back role for Kansas City, and he didn't. He struggled. He didn't have a good year. He even got hurt at times. And when Darwin Thompson came in, it didn't appear like he was able to fill that role either. So I think that by selecting Clyde Edwards, even over some of the other running backs in this draft, I think it's a good pick. He's a great player. He's a good running back at LSU. Coming off of a championship season, he's got confidence. He's coming into an offense that is really good with Tyreek Hill and McCole Hardman and Patrick Mahomes, obviously, at quarterback. And I think he'll be a good piece for this offense, and it'll be interesting to see how he fits in and if he can take over that number 1 running back role in Kansas City.
I agree. I think it was the perfect pick. Look, a lot of people thought they were going to take Swift, John Taylor. But if you look at this guy just fits into the offense that they're running in KC. Andy Reid just knows how to work with running backs like that. He's worked with Brian Westbrook. He's a little mix of Shady, Brian Westbrook, Priest Holmes. look, he's the perfect guy for KC, and I really like the pick. And going back to running backs, what do you think of the Packers taking AJ Dillon in the second round over just a wide receiver, tight end? Look, they need to get Rodgers' help, and I feel like this guy is only there to back up Aaron Jones, and if Aaron Jones doesn't sign his contract, this guy's gonna be the starter next year. But I personally don't think it was the right pick for the Packers.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that Aaron Jones is clearly the number one back in Green Bay, and I think that by bringing in AJ Dillon, he sort of like pushes Aaron Jones. Like maybe he'll take away some of his carries, and Aaron Jones, he clearly deserves those carries after the season that he had. And I think that the Packers did not need another running back. They're okay. They're great with Aaron Jones. They have Jamal Williams still. I think that they needed to take someone else. They should have taken a wide receiver in the second round, maybe a tight end. Or maybe even an offensive lineman if they thought that was the direction they wanted to head in. But I think that taking AJ Dillon, a guy who was good at Boston College, but I don't think he was the right fit for the Packers. I think that it was a poor selection. I wouldn't say a waste of a pick because he could still be helpful in that offense, but I would say an unnecessary pick, if you will.
And which going back to teams and like who amped up their team the most, which team do you think had a really bad draft that puts them in a bad position for this year?
I mean, a lot of people have pointed out that the Eagles had a bad draft, but I have to disagree with that. I mean, another team that I would say didn't have the best draft, I would have to say the Washington Redskins. They had Chase Young early, which was obviously he's a star, but they didn't do much the rest of the way. They didn't assess what they needed. In the second round, you saw them take
They didn't have a second round pick. They had a.
oh,
They did it.
my bad. Sorry.
No, but I think that the Redskins picking the Liberty wide receiver was a fantastic pick.
Yeah, but I don't know. They took Antonio Gibson in the third round out of Memphis, who's another wide receiver. They have Terry McLaurin, and I think that they didn't need to select that second wide receiver out of Liberty, but I think that they helped the pick out of in the second round, the guy from Memphis. I think it was a good pick there, and third round, my bad. But they needed to do something else the rest of the way. They got Sadiq Charles out of LSU in the fourth round in offensive tackle. They lost Trent Williams, so we'll see where that goes. But I mean, it's an offense that has struggled. They haven't been a good team these past however many years, and I think that they needed to help on defense, and I don't think they had the best draft.
I have to disagree with you. I think that the Redskins had a good draft, not a great draft, but it doesn't put them in that bad. Obviously, they're not going to win the NFC East next year, but they're in rebuilding mode with Haskins and stuff. I personally think that the Lions didn't have a great draft. I think that, look, Jeff Okudah is a very good quarterback, but I don't think he was the right pick for the Lions. I think that the Lions need to accumulate more picks because their team right now, if they accumulated more picks, their team right now needs more depth. And I feel like that they have a few needs to fill. Like DeAndre Swift was a fine pick, but I personally think that it wasn't the right pick for them because, look, they need some help on the defensive side. They didn't have a great year on defense, and Stafford already has enough weapons. And I think
They
that
didn't have a good year on either side of the ball. They were not
well,
offensively
let's not
either.
forget Stafford got hurt.
Yeah, that's true. They would have been much better had Stafford not gotten injured. But
And
yeah, I do. The Lions, they didn't have the best draft. Okuda helps, but the rest of the draft they didn't do so well.
and my next question for you is, which team do you think missed out on a player? Like, which team do you think should have traded up for a player, should have drafted a player?
I think the Eagles certainly had the ability to make a trade with the Atlanta Falcons and jump up to 16 to select CeeDee Lamb. And I think that maybe you saw them at 21. They saw CeeDee Lamb was falling, and no one really expected Dallas to select CeeDee Lamb. I didn't really see any mock drafts that had that. And I mean, the Jaguars were there at 20. Had CeeDee Lamb fallen to them, would they have taken him? Maybe, but they ended up going with Kavon Chasen out of LSU, who is an edge and not a wide receiver. And then the Eagles took Rager at 21. Maybe the Eagles just felt that Rager was the smart option for them. That's who they liked, and maybe they just didn't feel like they needed to pull the trigger on a trade and get CeeDee Lamb, and they just felt like Rager was who they wanted and who they were set on all the way through. So We don't know, but I feel like that was a position that the Eagles really could have jumped up to get already star wide receiver out of Oklahoma and Jalen Rager, who was good at TCU, but certainly not as good as CeeDee Lamb was at Oklahoma last season.
I got to go with the Chargers at 23. Look, they trade back into the round. I think that they're maybe picking Patrick Queen, who they should have picked at that pick. I think he's a much better linebacker than Kenneth Murray. But I just feel like the Chargers should have picked Patrick Queen at 23 rather than Kenneth Murray. And I feel like that Patrick Queen is a pick they're going to regret for years. And my next question for you is, which quarterback do you think is going to have a bigger jump in next season from all the weapons that they accumulated in the draft?
I mean, Carson Wentz certainly for Philly is definitely going to be much better next year with some new receivers, Rager, Hightower out of Boise State. And, yeah, I think that he'll certainly benefit from the draft. Also, Marquise Goodwin, who they traded for on draft day. And also another quarterback is Derek Carr with Henry Ruggs. The Raiders, after losing Antonio Brown, who they thought might have been that star receiver for them, certainly we all saw how that sort of worked its way out. Not both ways, but yeah, I think that Derek Carr will definitely benefit from the addition of Henry Ruggs to a pretty depleted receiving corps. They also added Nelson Aguilar, who really hasn't been the best player in the NFL, but he certainly has the ability to be a good receiver and to make some plays. We saw him in Philly. Although he struggled with catching the football, he had some drops. He still had some bright spots. He had some nice touchdowns. He was able to make some pretty nice plays for Philly, and he wasn't awful, but he wasn't what Philly was looking for. And I think the Raiders, with the addition of him and Henry Ruggs, certainly boosts that receiving core and helps out Derek Carr at quarterback.
I got to go with Drew Lock on Denver. Look, I was really high on Lock coming out of college last year when he came out of Missouri. And I think that he was a complete steal in the second round by the Broncos, who haven't had a real quarterback since Peyton Manning retired. And look, they added Jerry Jeudy. They added Lock's tight end in college. They added KJ Hamler. And in the offseason, they also got Melvin Gordon to be a nice complement to Phillip Lindsay. And personally, I just think that Drew Lock is going to have a much better season than he did in the few games that he played last year. And I really think that John Elway did a very good job this offseason, which is helping Drew Lock and making sure that Drew Lock is set on offense for the next few years, because you're going to have Hamler, Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Melvin, and Lindsay for the next few years with Drew Lock. And I personally think that also you're going to have Noah Fant, who's a great tight end. And I just think Denver's offense is going to be explosive next year.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And then one more quarterback that got some help. Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb. I mean, that receiving core is lethal with Gallup, Lamb, and obviously Amari Cooper. I think that certainly helps out the Cowboys offense. It makes them certainly more explosive, and I think that Dak Prescott's going to benefit a lot from that pick.
Which player do you think was the best fit for the team he got drafted to?
For me, I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking Tristan Wirfs to tackle certainly helps them. Their run game has really struggled the past few years, and Tom Brady coming in, they certainly need someone that can come in and protect the quarterback. Also, you see another tackle taken in the first round of the New York Jets, Mekhi Becton. I think that was a really good pick for them because you saw how bad that offensive line was last year, how many sacks they gave up. Their quarterbacks were getting killed all season long. And I think that, Tristan Wirfs, Mekhi Becton, 2 tackles for the Jets and the Buccaneers. I think that those players are definitely good fits for their teams.
I got to go with C.J. Henderson out of Florida, Jacksonville Jaguars. Look, Jaguars haven't had – well, last year, obviously, they traded Jalen Ramsey and A.J. Boye. Their secondary was decimated. It was just they're in complete rebuild mode in that. And I think that C.J. Henderson is a great lockdown quarterback. I talked about last week how much I really liked him and how much the Jacksonville Jaguars and him were such a good match for each other. And it worked out. And I just think that Henderson's going to have a great career in Jacksonville. And I also like to pick Javon Kinlaw to the Niners. The Niners traded their former first-round pick, DeForest Buckner, out of Oregon a few years ago for a first-round pick. And the Colts gave him the first-round pick. And I think that Kinlaw is just going to come in, replace Buckner. He's going to put up similar numbers in a few years that Buckner did, and they don't have to pay the man for a few years. And they save a ton of money, and they already owe Kittle an extension next year, and they're just going to have to extend more players. And they want to keep this NFC dominance up like they had last year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, they lost to Forrest Buckner, but I mean, that was a player that they were going to have to pay a lot of money to keep there. And I think that by bringing in Kinlaw, that front four for the 49ers is going to be crazy with the addition of Kinlaw. They're going to be really good. They were really, really, really good last year, and I think they're going to be even better this year.
Yeah, I totally agree. I personally think that was just a great thing for the Niners. Also, going back to the Niners, what do you think of the Niners taking Brandon Ayuk from Arizona State, trading up to get him? Like, what do you make of that? He's not really a known prospect, but
I like the pick for the Niners. I think that they certainly needed a wide receiver. I mean, you saw them lose Emmanuel Sanders. They traded Marquise Goodwin. George Kittle, obviously a huge help, but he's a tight end. But I think I like the pick for them. I like them taking Ayuk. He was a good for Arizona State, and I think it was a good selection for them. I like that pick. I think trading up to get a receiver that they clearly liked, that they wanted. I think that I like it. It helps them. They obviously needed receivers to help out Garoppolo. Had they not selected a receiver, I mean, that offense would probably struggle this year because they didn't really have anyone. Ayuk has the ability to come in and really boost this offense.
welcome back. We had to take a little break because of technical difficulties. But my next question is, who is your biggest sleeper in this draft?
I think Devin Duvernay out of Texas, a wide receiver that was selected by the Baltimore Ravens in the 3rd round. I think with Lamar Jackson at quarterback, I mean, he's going to come in. He's going to make an impact instantly. Jackson at quarterback, he's going to make the receivers around him good. And I think that was a really good pick. Harbaugh really liked him. They got him later in the 3rd round, and I think it's a good pick. They had Marquise Brown at receiver. They have Mark Andrews. They have Willie Snead, and they wanted to add something, another piece, a younger receiver that will help them in the future.
I agree. I really like that pick a lot. I thought that was a great pick by Harbaugh. And if you were watching the draft, 2nd day or 3rd day, you saw his reaction to him picking Duvernay. They showed it again after he picked him. But look, I gotta go with in the 2nd round, the Jacksonville Jaguars picked Laviska out of Colorado, and he had an injury. He was projected to be a 1st rounder a few months ago, but after the injury, his stock went down. And personally, after you saw the videos of him after injury, he looks great. And I think that Gardner Minshew gets a big target, and the Jacksonville Jaguars have a great 1-2 punch at receiver of DJ Chark and Laviska. So I really like that pick.
Laviska Shenault out of Colorado. Yeah, I think it's a good pick that'll help the Jaguars a lot.
Also, I really like Michael Pittman out of USC. The Colts picked him, and I think that he's just a big guy. He can go up. He gets the 50-50 ball. He doesn't have a lot of speed, but he's fast enough to keep up with the best corners in the NFL. And I think that he's a fantastic career, and I really like the pick.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Michael Pittman at USC, good wide receiver, good player. I think that the Colts will benefit from bringing him in,
And
especially the uncertainty of T.Y. Hilton and his future playing in the National Football League, as he's had some injuries. Will the Colts eventually move on from T.Y. Hilton?
And going to a topic that we both really like talking about, fantasy football. Which player this weekend saw his stock hurt the most in fantasy football for this season?
I mean, you would definitely have to look at players like Marlon Mack for the Colts when they selected Jonathan Taylor. Marlon Mack was a solid running back last year in fantasy. He wasn't RB1. He was probably a decent RB2, middle of the pack RB2. Yeah, I think bringing in Jonathan Taylor eventually, I think the Colts will probably want him to become that lead back. And also Damian Williams, who probably was the Chiefs' running back going into the year prior to the draft, and now bringing in Clyde Edwards. People are expecting Edwards to just come in and take over the job pretty much. I think that he was hurt a lot. And also Tyler Boyd, A.J. Green coming back, and T. Higgins, who was a good pick. I think it'll help Burrow out with Higgins, A.J. Green, and Boyd at receiver. But I think Boyd had his stock hurt a little bit because there's going to be a few other receivers now around him that are going to be able to take away some of his receptions and targets that he might have had in the past 2 seasons.
I got to go with Devin Singletary out of Buffalo. Look, they drafted him last year. He was a later round pick, but he just exploded onto the scene. He got off to a slower start to his NFL career, but they had Frank Gore last year, and when he was given the opportunity, he was just a dynamic running back. And I don't know why the Bills would pick Zach Moss. He was a good running back, but I think that Singletary has the potential to be a workhorse in the NFL, and I think that the Buffalo Bills maybe should have given him a bigger chance, and now he's going to have to he's gonna be a 1-2 punch with Zach Moss out of Utah, and I don't really like that. And also, I think a player that also got his stock hurt the most. I mean, look, you were talking about Marlon Mack, but you're forgetting about Aaron Jones. He might have to. A.J. Dillon's going to come in. He's going to get some carries every game. Aaron Jones had potential to be a top 5 running back this season, and he just saw some of his carries get taken away, and he was already splitting snaps with Jamal Williams out of BYU. So I still don't like that pick by Green Bay.
Yeah,
Also,
I agree with you.
yeah. And my next question for you is, which player do you not think is going to succeed in the NFL?
Which player do I not think will succeed in the NFL? I mean,
He's going to be a Jamarcus Russell.
it's very early to sort of tell, but I think for me personally, one player that I did not like was the Raiders selection at 19. I think taking Arnett out of Ohio State, I think they reached for him, and I think he's a good corner. I don't know how good he'll be in the NFL. I don't think that he's going to really develop into a star corner in the National Football League. I'm not sure if he'll be a bust, but I don't know if he's really that first-round worthy talent that the Raiders think they have in him.
I didn't like the Dolphins pick of Austin Jackson in the first round. I really didn't like that pick. I think that, look, Austin Jackson, he was a good tackle in college, but you saw he's going to have some problems in the NFL. He's just like, he's a raw talent, and I think that he's going to have a hard time adjusting to the NFL. And that's not going to be good for the Dolphins because they need as much protection for Tua as they can get. And I don't know. I think he wasn't the pick at 18, and I don't think he's going to have a great career. And talking about the draft, so obviously the Dolphins picked a quarterback, and there's a quarterback on the roster, his first-round pick a few years ago, Josh Rosen, obviously, out of UCLA. What do you think happens to his NFL career?
I mean, right now it's a lot of uncertainty surrounding him. First it was with Arizona, and then they brought in Kyler Murray, and now he's with Miami, and they brought in Tua Tagovailoa, and I think that he is not the quarterback of the future for the Dolphins. He was supposedly the quarterback of the future for the Arizona Cardinals, but not anymore. So I think it's going to be it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. I think he probably ends up sticking with Miami for this season in a backup role, and maybe Miami won't even decide to play Tua this year. Maybe they'll stick with Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I think Josh Rosen eventually will have to move on from Miami. Maybe if it's before this year, maybe after this year.
Look, Josh Rosen's ever been given a fair chance in the NFL. In Arizona, he didn't have a great O-line. He had a terrible team. He had a team that got first pick the next season. Went to Miami. They were, beginning of the season, they were atrocious. As you saw, they got blown out by the Ravens week 1. New England completely obliterated them. Josh Rosen's just never gotten a fair chance. And I think he's a guy that Bill Belichick should call Brian Flores and say, yo, like, I think that we should trade for Josh Rosen because, like, they could get a 7th-round pick, Miami, and trade him. And I think that Bill Belichick develops him into a good, solid NFL quarterback, but you never know with him.
The thing with that is division-to-division trading is a rarity in the NFL. So it would be interesting to see if Miami would be willing to do that. I'm not really sure they'd want to give him away to a division rival, an opponent that they play twice a year and that competes for the division title with them. But, yeah, I think that would be interesting if that were to happen, but I just don't see the likeliness of that happening.
Well, this is also a special case because they would take a bag of potato chips for Josh Rosen. They can get whatever they could take for him.
Yeah.
And after this draft, which coach do you think is on the hot seat the most?
Which coach on the hot seat the most? For me, I think the Jaguars, Doug Marrone, certainly on the hot seat. The Jaguars, they were good a few years back, and now they've really struggled. I think adding C.J. Henderson helps the defense. They lost Jalen Ramsey, so that was sort of they need him, and I want to see how they sort of incorporate Yannick Ngakoue back into the to the team. You know, he's been a lot of falling out, a lot of disputes between him and you saw the owner's son. They were going at it on Twitter, but I think, yeah, we'll see how he does. We saw him getting in arguments last year with players, so I think he's certainly on the hot seat because he needs to reassure this franchise and this organization that he is the coach, that he has control over this team, and that he hasn't lost his sort of role of power over them.
I got to go with Dan Quinn on the Falcons. He's a few years removed from that Super Bowl blown lead, and to this day, I don't know who blew that lead. But look, they in the first round they picked AJ Terrell from Clemson. Didn't totally agree with the pick, but they wanted a cornerback. He was probably the best cornerback on the board. And personally, I think that look, Arthur Blank, the owner, is like, you're in win now mode, and if they don't win, he's not the guy to take them to the promised land.
Yeah.
And all right, we're gonna take a short break because we're gonna have our first ever guest star on the show, our Giants expert, Roni Cohen. So we'll be right back. Welcome back. We got our first ever guest star, Roni Cohen, out of Allentown, Pennsylvania. And as you can tell by Ronnie's room, he's our Giants expert. So let's get right to it, Ronnie. Ronnie, what were your thoughts on Andrew Thomas being the first O-lineman taken off the board by the New York Giants?
Listen, I mean, it was a little unexpected at first, but great move by Gettleman on my part. I mean, this man's a monster. Andrew Thomas on film, one of the most impressive tackles in this draft. I mean, I watched him, and I couldn't believe how good his feet and his hands were. I mean, taking the longest – like, you're talking the longest arms at a combine for any offensive lineman this year. So now, listen, he played left tackle most of his career, but he started true freshman at right tackle. So he's really versatile, and I like that. I like that about him, and I feel like Gettleman could move him all across. Just depends on where the Giants' needs are. So if I could just show a video quickly, what really catches my eye is some of his run block. Let me just get this up.
And yeah, what you said, yeah, he is definitely a monster. He'll certainly help the Giants and Saquon Barkley, and also protect Daniel Jones back at quarterback.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, especially on Daniel Jones' blind side, you know. All right, here we go. So here we see, and Andrew Thomas, number 71. If you see, he's literally running as fast as the corner. He doesn't give up, and I just love that about him. I mean, like, he's huge. He's a huge hog molly, and Gettleman loves those. We know that. And I feel like on Daniel Jones' blind side, especially with his size, his arms, his speed too, I feel like that's great for the Giants. I mean, great pick. Little unexpected, but I definitely like it.
All right, my next question for you is, look, Daniel Jones, he had a decent rookie year. He didn't have a great rookie year. He didn't have a good rookie year. He had a decent rookie year. Some fumbling issues. Is Daniel Jones good enough to take the Giants to the promised land?
So listen, I mean, I think he's definitely good, but it definitely helps that Giants just acquired 950 pounds of just hog mollies in this past draft. So I mean, that's really important for him and Saquon alike. And I see a really bright future for Daniel Jones and the Giants. I mean, let me show a quick clip again of this remarkable play type.
The line can't control his fumbling issues. That's something that
I mean, well, what's really important about that is you have to remember that Andrew Thomas is on Daniel Jones' blind side. And most of the fumbles are when Daniel Jones wasn't looking and his arm was back on his blind side. So, I mean, I think that could really help, especially with Thomas's big arms, being able to push the defenders. But we'll see. I mean, it's just what the future could tell.
All right. Yeah. You need film on Daniel Jones?
Yeah, I'm just going to show a quick clip.
All right. Perfect. And look, there's two sides of this tale. Look, Jameis Winston, fumbling and interception issues. Now he's a backup for the Saints. But also you look at Peyton Manning, fumbling and interception issues. One of the best quarterbacks in NFL history. So it's just a matter of if you can get it cleaned up and if you can clean up your game. Daniel Jones is a good quarterback for years to come.
All right, so I'm just going to show this video. And here. All right, let's start off. So this is the first game that Daniel Jones played versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So what I want to highlight here is – here, we'll see. We'll start. And if you see, the ball is thrown from the – all right, so Sterling Shepard's going in the corner. Okay, we're going to get the corner trailing from underneath and the safety over the top. So this ball is thrown in an absolutely perfect spot. And what we see a lot with quarterbacks is they float the ball to the corner in the end zone, to the pylon. I mean, that's one place to throw it, absolutely. But a lot depends on where the safeties are lined up. I mean, here we see the safety go over him on the top. I mean, there's no way you're going to be able to float the ball here without the safety getting a hand on it. And we can't throw it too far underneath because then the corners are just going to make a play. But, I mean, Daniel Jones puts this ball. he puts it so far and away in a spot where only Sterling Shepard can make a play on it. And to me, that is an outstanding red zone play. And you're putting your guy in a position to win. And I think that the Giants' play calling, I mean, it's been really good this year. And they did a great job. So it's putting Daniel Jones in a position to excel, and only that. So, I mean, you throw that ball, Sterling Shepard's going to get it 9 out of 10 times. I love that play. And I feel like Daniel Jones just keeps doing that, you know?
Yeah.
So that's it. I like that play, and we'll bring it back to you guys.
All right. My next question for you is, look, Dave Gettleman, he's taking a lot of heat the past few years for the Daniel Jones pick and other picks that he's made in the past. Is this seat on fire this year if the Giants don't have a good season?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, but personally, I don't think that John Maras is worried about anything Gettleman's doing. I mean, I am definitely not. I'd probably give his draft this year an A- for starters. I mean, he valued fixing the offensive line. That's just what he did. He put in the necessary needs for the success of his 2 future stars, Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. Now, he also gave Jabril Peppers, who was, to me, was the best safety at the draft, McKinney. So, nonetheless, Gettleman has done so much for New York, whether it's been drafting Saquon at 2, Daniel Jones at 6, and definitely drafting X-Men in the second round. He got rid of Toxic Energy and Odell and overvalued him to secure Olivier Vernon, O'Shane Zimenez, Dexter Lawrence. Those were our 2 picks. Kevin Zeitler and Jabril Peppers. So, I mean, yeah, to me, the answer, Jacob, is it's just John Mara. Who does he think Gettleman – what does he think Gettleman can do? And that's pretty much the basis there.
Yeah, and I agree with you on what you said about that. I think Gettleman – some questionable picks, but, I mean, Daniel Jones, he wasn't bad for the Giants. The Giants were a team that needed a lot of work. I mean, Daniel Jones was going in with an offensive line that really struggled last year and that couldn't do the best job protecting him. But I think this year the offensive line was bolstered, and I think that Gettleman did a good job. And this is where he sort of was able to say, like, look what I did in this draft, like, and look what these other players that I drafted, and look how they turned out in the long run. And I think that Dave Gettleman's done a good job and that they should stick with him.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. If you look at it, the only other quarterbacks that were even being talked about was Dwayne Haskins. And, I mean, look how he came out. So it's not too promising now. I'm not saying that anything's going to happen, but so far Daniel Jones had a better season than Haskins did. So we'll see.
Sure.
You talked about Xavier McKinney, safety out of Alabama, in a few sentences ago. Look, Giants' defense hasn't been great the past few years. Is McKinney going to come in and be a difference maker day one, or is he a guy that's a long-term project?
For sure. Well, I mean, I just want to start by giving a pro comparison to McKinney. So I want to compare him to Landon Collins. So they're both from Alabama. They're both 6 feet. They're both huge playmakers. And most importantly, they're both safeties who should have been gone in the first round, but people were sleeping on them, and they went into the second. So I think something like that really just motivates a player. If you remember back in 2016, Landon Collins was really frustrated that he wasn't drafted in the first round, and he told people, I'm going to prove you wrong because of this. And I feel like that's great motivation. I feel like it makes you want to play for your team. It makes you want to win games. It makes you want to show people that they're wrong. I feel like the same thing's going to happen with McKinney. I mean, was he not supposed to go in the first round? He definitely was. I mean, he's best safety in the draft. So, I mean, I feel like he's also one of the players that's going to make a difference right away. Like, it's not going to take him – I don't think it'll take him time. You put that man anywhere on the field, and he will become a Pro Bowler. He is great. I love him. I couldn't say any more about him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really like Xavier McKinney out of Alabama. I think he's going to be a great player. His speed, he can rush, he can drop back in coverage. You saw he had some nice interceptions with Alabama last season. I think he's athletic, he's fast, and I think it's a huge pickup for the Giants, especially to get him where they got him sort of early in the second round. I thought he might have even gone in the teens. He might have gone as early as 15, and to fall all the way to the Giants to get him there, I think was a huge, huge pickup for New York.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, we're talking 10 turnovers on the year, 5 interceptions, 5 forced fumbles. That's great. In 2 years, 5 interceptions, 5 forced fumbles. Listen, that reminds me exactly of Landon Collins, and I'll be happy with that. I mean, his career in the Giants, per se.
Look, he's in the SEC too. Best conference in college football. It's a huge difference maker.
No joke. Yeah, he. I remember one of the strip sacks on Joe Burrow. It's a great play. I mean, I love him. I love him as a playmaker. So yeah.
My last question for you is: last year, what was your reaction to the Giants drafting Daniel Jones? Before I let you go.
All right, so it was a lot of mixed feelings there. I mean, at first, a few weeks before the draft, I mean, if you recall that like rumor that Daniel Jones was coming to the Giants really only came like a week or two before the draft. And like, I really had no idea. I didn't think that was going to be anything special. I mean, I looked into it. I saw his plays. You know, like being in Duke, it's not you don't get too much competition, but he still like rose to the level of success, and he still became better than everyone on the field. And that's something that I liked about him. Like he didn't take his division for granted. He played just as good as he would have played in any other division, and his highlights, he puts the ball wherever the receivers want. I mean, if you recall the last video that I showed, he put that ball in the basket of Sterling Shepard, and that's what I love about him. I mean, honestly, when he was drafted, I don't know if I was too hyped, but like I wasn't worried per se. I wasn't worried. I didn't think that he would be like a bust, but I'm also like his high ceiling, but also it's like low risk, high reward. You know, or yeah.
So it wasn't like a Porzingis reaction to it?
Not really. I mean, it was tough, but you know, like for the Giants, we have a lot of history of like you know, choosing people late and then choosing people early are going to be bust. Choosing people late going to be good. Look at Victor Cruz. I mean, like undrafted free agent. I mean, it's crazy, but you know, I wasn't too worried. I mean, he looks like a good guy, good player. Very smart, great football IQ. I mean, you can't really go wrong with someone like Daniel Jones.
All right, Ronnie. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
for having me on the show, guys.
Of course, anytime. All right. And going back to the NFL draft with Jacob Robbaum, my last question for you on the NFL draft is, which team do you think boosted the roster the most on the draft? Not which team had the best draft, not which team made the most improvements, but which team do you think looks better because of this draft?
For me, I would say the Cleveland Browns did a good job this draft. I think adding Jedrick Wills in the first round was a good pick, and also their division rival, the Cincinnati Bengals. I love the pick of T. Higgins in the second round. I think that receiving core is going to help Joe Burrow a lot and make the process of coming into the NFL a lot easier. I think that Higgins, a lot of people thought he might have gone first round. A lot of people had him going in like the early 20s, late 20s. But I think I like the Bengals. I like the Browns. I think that both those teams did a great job boosting their roster. And also, like you said before, the Carolina Panthers, that defense got a lot better from this draft. And I think that they help themselves, the Panthers, if they want to have a chance at competing to win the NFC South, which looks like it might be the toughest division in football.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Guys for watching another week of the Jacob and Jacob podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Hare, joined by my co-host, Jacob Robbaum. And like and subscribe to the video. And if you haven't checked out our video from last week, go check that out. Thank you, everyone.